Plami, and in this episode of Plami's Thoughts On, I'm gonna be sharing my thoughts on the third episode of the 7th season of one of my favorite shows ever, Fear the Walking Dead. And the name of the episode is Cindy Hawkins, which makes sense very much once you have seen the episode, because it's a reference to one of the major characters in this episode. But I honestly still would have preferred something different because, I don't know, I feel like they just could have done something more creative and maybe more of a reference to a very cool show that I actually plan on reviewing at some point in the future called Ghost Whisperer, because this episode was very much some Ghost Whisperer level shit. Because, like, for those of you who don't know what Ghost Whisperer is, I mean, I don't necessarily want to spoil it to you. Go and watch it. That's a really fucking good show from, like, 2006, 5, I don't know. It's a decently old show, like, it's from the mid-2000s. And it's a show in which the main character, Melinda Gordon, can communicate with ghosts, which she can see them, she can talk to them. And usually the formula of the episode is that she meets a ghost, the ghost keeps scaring her throughout the episode, and she ends up allowing it to pass on to the other side by the end of it. And it's a really good show with a lot of creepy moments in it, honestly, from what I remember. But I haven't watched it probably in, I don't know, 7-8 years, very likely. So I am definitely excited to start watching it in the future, and I will be reviewing it. But yeah, this episode very much felt like that in a lot of ways. Especially with the visuals at a certain point in the episode in which you have John Dory Sr. seeing these visions, aka kind of like ghosts with their mouths sewn together, walking towards him. Like, that is 100% something you would see in Ghost Whisperer. So I really like that aspect of the episode. But I definitely have some criticism towards this episode, which is honestly mostly connected to the fact that it was another hallucination-based episode. Like, The Walking Dead universe is no stranger to hallucinations and dream sequences and everything, but it's, for some reason, has really been overplayed in the last year or two. Because in the last year or two, we've gotten that ghost episodes in season 10 of episode 3 of the main show. We got the hallucinations by Carol again in season 10, episode 14. We had the hallucinations by Princess in season 10, episode 20. And I'm maybe forgetting something. We also had the hallucinations by Siddiq throughout season 10 as well. In World Beyond, in I think it was episode 1 or 2, we had against hallucinations by Hope because she ended up hitting her head. And in Fear the Walking Dead, last season, we had Daniel not knowing what's real and what's not. We had Grace being stuck in her own mind or whatever. And now we have, again, hallucinations by John Dory Sr. in this episode. Like, it's been a little bit overplayed. It's safe to say it's been a little bit overplayed. So, once I realized that it was going to be this episode was going to be based on hallucinations, I was kind of bothered by it, and I was really starting to be bored by the episode, because when it's a hallucination, it's just not as entertaining because none of the shit matters. So your investment in the show instantly kind of disappears, or at least it kind of does for me. I'm willing to defend a lot of the hallucinations-based episodes of the show. Like, for example, I defended season 10, episode 20 a lot because I thought it was actually a very entertaining hallucination-based episode. But on the other hand, season 10, episode 14 of the main show, in which Carol hallucinates Alpha, was boring. Because instead of having those two characters interact at some point during the seasons, we have them share hallucinations like that. It's just kind of boring because we could have had this interaction with them actually, and not just a hallucination. It's more about the wasted potential that the show thinks that I'm entertained by the fact that Carol is hallucinating and having this conversation with Alpha, but it's not real. Like, it thinks that is good enough, when it could have been better if they actually had those two characters interact like that. Because when we did have them, it was really satisfying. But still, I would say for the most part, this episode actually plays it off pretty well. Like, I enjoy how they explain it and how it's done and everything. And I like it. I like it. So, we open up the episode with essentially a montage for how John and June are surviving in the bunker underground. And again, this is another case of, wow, I actually didn't realize that the bunker is this big. Because that's kind of my reaction, what my reaction was in the first episode when we got a look of Alicia's bunker. Because I feel like I'm not the only one who was under the impression that maybe the bunker was like maybe one small room. But no, in this episode, for this bunker as well, that's actually a pretty fucking huge underground space. And it's honestly really cool. To see all these sets and everything. I really did enjoy seeing the sets and seeing the montage of them surviving and everything, and how everything is the same day in, day out, because, I mean, there's not much to do surviving in a bunker underground for potentially could be years. So after we're done with a little bit of the montage, it's not exactly clear how, but there's a certain shelf which is put to hide a hidden door in the bunker, ends up falling off and falling apart and opening that secret door, which John and June end up finding out that this is where Teddy was killing people all those years ago. And it's kind of cool that they're continuing to kind of explore the legacy of Teddy, like what he did. It's honestly really cool. Like, Teddy is probably the most interesting villain that the Fear the Walking Dead has ever had. I mean, outside of like the Native Americans in season 3, but whether they were villains necessarily is debatable. So there's that as well. But he's genuinely like the one villain that I think is really good, and it's easily the best villain out of the reboot of Fear. And it's really cool that they're making him keeping his presence in the show even after he's dead, because we only had him for like 4 episodes, 4 episodes which he fucking was amazing in, second that Pope from the main show. So it's cool to still have his legacy in the show and continue to explore it. Although some could argue, why are you bothering to continue to develop Teddy's character, so to speak, even after he's dead? Like, yeah, he's dead and it doesn't really make too much sense, but at the end of the day, the characters are stuck in a bunker. I don't mind telling this kind of story that still brings something to the story overall, you know? So yeah, they end up finding that room, and John Dory, since he he has always felt somewhat bad that he had to fake evidence to put Teddy in jail, because of all the people that Teddy killed, which is like 27 women, they only... No, I think it was like... It's either 26 or 27, but... of all the women that Teddy had killed, there was one body that they never found, which is Cindy Hawkins, which is the title of the episode, and this episode is about her. And John Dory Sr. has always felt bad about the fact that he wasn't able to find that body. And again, I just really like continuing to build that story and that relationship between John Dory Sr. and Teddy. It really makes the world feel bigger. And it's just really cool to have a relationship between two characters that is from before the zombie apocalypse happened. Because, like, that's unlike anything we've had on these shows. Because it's always about how the apocalypse has caused these people who otherwise wouldn't have met each other ever have to survive together, you know? So it's kind of cool to have characters with relationship from before. It's really cool. That's probably my favorite aspect of both John Dory Sr. and Teddy's characters. So So he has been troubled for years with the fact that he never found the body, and now that he has found the place where Teddy did all those murders, he feels even more troubled about it. And it doesn't help the fact that he has had drinking problems over the years, and right now he's kind of been going a little bit cold turkey because, I mean, I'm not sure whether it's because they lack any alcohol inside the bunker, because the episode doesn't necessarily make it obvious, but it's obvious. It makes it obvious enough that the reason he's having these hallucinations in the episode is because he is not drinking alcohol anymore, which I'm personally decently satisfied with as an explanation for the hallucinations. So, in the middle of the night, after being able to fall asleep, he ends up going to explore that room in which Teddy murdered people, and he even hears voices and everything. And there's a really cool scene that scared the shit out of me, and it was a really nice jump scare with John Dory hearing voices and walking towards the hatch to the outside world, and even climbing the stairs. And as he's trying to listen through the door, he ends up hearing a female voice say, "Help me," which scares the fuck out of him, and he falls down the stairs. Like, that was a really cool and really well built up scare. Like, I really liked it. How can you say that is bad? That was really fucking satisfying and entertaining. Like, I liked it. So again, he goes on to investigate inside that room and find information. And then he takes one of the suits that the radioactive radiation protecting. So he takes one of the. And then he takes one of the radiation protective suits that June has been hand making for the last for all the time that they've been underground. To go outside and see what the voice that he heard was. And we again get to see some really cool locations is one way to say it, but it's obviously very much a set of the place where the bunker was. Again, personally, it doesn't bother me that it's a set and that it looks like a set, because it still looks really good, and it really feels like they put a lot of effort into making it look really cool. But as he goes outside, he sees Teddy's burned up body, and he also sees Dakota as a walker. And this is something that I've seen people criticize, that it's a continuity error, that the showrunners didn't care about continuity, they only cared about cool moments, like style over substance kind of thing. Because she was clearly blown away by the shockwave and the flash at the end of the finale last season. But if you actually paid attention to that episode and that scene specifically, yes, she gets burned to a crisp by the flash, but she actually doesn't get blown to pieces. She's just burned. It's just that by the time the shockwave comes and she would be blown away, the screen fills up with too much stuff for us to see her get blown to pieces. So it's not right to assume that she was blown to pieces. And as we see in the episode, she wasn't. So John Dory Sr. ends up putting her down and feeling guilty, as she's essentially another of Teddy's victims, because she was she was already somewhat psychotic beforehand, but it didn't help that she met Teddy, who ended up manipulating her even more. And after killing Dakota and putting her out of her misery, John Dory Sr. continues to hear voices, and she even sees a silhouette in the distance of a woman wearing an old school restaurant worker outfit, which, I mean, instantly throws you off by the that she's not really there. And he keeps walking towards her, and again, this was very much some Ghost Whisperer shit, because it was really creepy to see that ghost, so to speak, be very close to John Dory and be literally in his face and try to open its mouth, and all the pieces of the sawed on pieces of the mouth falling apart, kind of like what we saw with some of the embalmed walkers last season. Like, that was really cool and really creepy. And then June also shows up above ground and ends up shooting the walker that was actually attacking John Dory, and it wasn't the ghost. So then she calls out to John Dory, and all of a sudden there's 3 people who I think the episode leads us to believe are the stalkers, standing in the background, which scares John Dory. And it's also kind of played as a scare, like a ghost, like as if there are ghosts. So they both go down underground again, and John Dory Sr. actually managed to get scratched by that walker, which the way they kind of shot it in that scene and focused on it made me actually somewhat worried about John Dory, whether he was going to die from that scratch by the end of the episode, especially because they really had him very sweaty and kind of show very walker bite-like symptoms throughout the episode, and I was like more and more convinced that okay, he's gonna die from that actually, but he actually didn't, and it doesn't seem like he's going to. So that's cool, but that caused some confusion again on the subreddit for Fear the Walking Dead, with people saying, oh, why didn't he die from the scratch from the walkers? Well, because in the universe, it's never been confirmed that scratches do actually kill you. I feel like a lot of people do not understand that one scene from season 2 with Rick and Shane, where they find 2 bodies with no obvious bite marks. But if you remember, back then in season 2 of The Walking Dead, we didn't know that regardless of how you die, you are infected already. So no matter how you die, you're gonna turn. So in that scene with Rick saying that it's probably scratches that killed him, it was him just kind of hiding that fact and throwing Shane away from thinking about how could they possibly have died, because he didn't want to believe the fact that Dr. Jenner from season 1 was right about that. So no, scratches can't turn you. The closest thing we have to scratches like things killing you and causing you to turn is in season 8 of the main show, when the Saviors put the weapons into zombie guts and then end up stabbing people and injuring them, which ends up turning them. Like, yeah, that might kill you, but that is not a scratch, really. So then we have more hallucinations by John Dory, which I don't really even want to really talk about, because, I mean, I don't care about it at the end of the day. He discusses with the hallucinations that he's having of that woman about where she was when Teddy kidnapped her. And it was actually really nice attention to detail that the ghost wasn't explaining or answering John Dory's questions, but was saying things that his subconscious might be saying, essentially showing us that she is his subconscious personified in a way, you know? So after thinking about it, John Dory again wants to go outside and go to the place where her body could possibly be, because she wants her body to be found. By extension, it means that his consciousness wants her body to be found. So he kind of deduces where the body could possibly be and decides to go outside again. But there's a little bit of a conflict between him and June, with June not wanting to go outside because she's apparently scared of the radiation. At least I think that's what the episode kind of leads us to believe, that she's actually afraid of going out into the nuclear fallout because she doesn't want to die, which is something that I'm surprised, because I don't think we've ever led to believe that she was afraid of that. Like, maybe there was some scenes with her being afraid of radiation back in season 5 when they were dealing with the nuclear power station falling apart and everything. But I don't think there was any scene that led us to believe that she was actually afraid of radiation. But it was still kind of nice to see that she's actually afraid, and she's not like a flawless badass hero who is ready to go out into the nuclear wasteland and just find a better place to live. She's afraid. She doesn't want to go out. And obviously she doesn't want to let John go outside either because of his alcohol withdrawal symptoms and because she doesn't want to be alone. So there's a little bit of a struggle, and throughout the episode we see that the ground above is kind of slowly collapsing upon the bunker. Why exactly? It's not necessarily clear, but I mean, that bunker has been there for God knows how long, so it's not necessarily out of the picture completely, but I feel like maybe there should have been some kind of like earthquake or something to cause that, but yeah, I don't know. So there's a little bit of a power struggle, and part of the bunker falls apart, which causes June and John Dory Sr. to kind of go unconscious for a little bit. And once they both come to sense again, John Dory uses the fact that June has kind of been pinned by a log on the ground and she can't stop him now to go outside and actually also take care of the people who are trying to get inside their bunker, because as I mentioned earlier, there was these three stalkers who were talking to John and June through the radio and wanted to get inside. Again, it's not made clear why they wanted to get inside. Did they need supplies? Did they need a place to stay? It's not made clear, but they wanted to get inside. Would they not see him go outside? I don't understand, but he somehow manages to go outside and ends up in a pretty cool shootout between them, honestly. And I love the attention to detail about the bullets, and with John Dory Senior having like 6 bullets and him having to spend every single one of them, and with every single one of them being very memorable in a way that it's used, you know, with him ended up shooting 2 of the 3 people with his last 3 bullets. That was honestly really cool, with him finally deciding that even if he goes and saves June, he's not forgetting to help Cindy Hawkins and find her body. He calms down, his alcohol withdrawal symptoms stop, and he's able to shoot and kill these people. That was really satisfying, in my opinion. But then afterwards, one of the guys who he didn't manage to shoot manages to get inside, and as John Dory Sr. is trying to follow him inside, he is again stopped by some of the visions that he's seeing of the victims of Teddy. And again, as I mentioned earlier, we have this shot of these ghosts with sewn mouths walking towards John Dory in a very creepy way. I fucking really like that. It was really creepy and it was really satisfying. And again, it really reminded me of Ghost Whisperers, which is a show that I utterly adore for many reasons, which I'm going to talk about whenever I review it. But I loved it, and I really like those shots, especially because we also get to see like little flashes of how these women were murdered. So that was again another really cool attention to detail with like little flashbacks here and there. That was really cool. I don't necessarily remember exactly how he managed to stop them from attacking him. I think he just kind of like decided that he was going to help June and got up and started stabbing them. But I don't exactly remember every single detail about it, whether there was like a more of a cathartic moment in that scene. But he manages to get inside and save June right in time, because one of those stalkers that managed to get inside, that one stalker that managed to get inside was very close to shooting her, but John Dory Sr. managed to shoot him before that. He also obviously ended up saving her, and at the end of the episode they both decide to venture out of the bunker in a search for a better place to survive. But just as they are ready to get outside, it starts to collapse with dirt filling the whole place up. And that was actually really surprising that it happened, because it kind of came out of nowhere. I actually did not expect that was gonna happen. And the following scene afterwards is even more fucking confusing, because at first I was like, is he hallucinating again? Having some kind of like a dream sequence where he wakes up in the real world and it's not a zombie apocalypse anymore? Because of the way it was just shot, it kind of felt like that. But no, apparently once the dirt fell onto them, at some point Strand and his people managed to find them and save them and brought them to his place. and Dory Senior has been in a coma, for lack of a better way to say it, for a few days, and he's finally awake. So we have a really entertaining scene with Strand, who, by the way, like, he's very entertaining. Common Domingo is a great actor, but we have a really nice scene with John Dory Sr. Telling Strand that he is not going to side with him or trust him after what he did to Morgan in the sub at the end of last season. And Strand honestly has a really nice response of, I did what I did, but Morgan is out there while I'm right here. Which is essentially like him in a nutshell. Yeah, he did what he did, but honestly, if it wasn't for him doing that, they wouldn't have been able to stop the nukes in the first place, because if you remember, the door to the control room in the sub was locked. And the only reason they managed to get inside is because Strand ended up pushing Morgan inside of into the walkers, and Morgan then decided to look through the walkers for the cards, which then allowed him to open that door. Maybe they could have gotten the cards anyway by killing all the walkers one by one and getting the cards out of them, but as I commented on Reddit, considering the characters of Morgan and Strand and where they were mentally at the end of last season, Morgan would have been way too selfless, and Strand was way too selfish for them to have worked together in that situation to kill all the walkers. Because if you remember, at the end of last season, Morgan was really adamant to sacrifice himself if it meant that his people were going to survive and he would manage to save Teddy. But Strand, on the other hand, didn't want to let Morgan do that because A, it was foolish to him to do that because it wouldn't necessarily mean they would stop Teddy, and B, because he wanted to be the one to save the day. So once, before the scene in which Strand throws Morgan to the walkers, Morgan, out of nowhere, decides to become all pissy about that fact that Strand wants to be the hero and attacks him. So Strand, understandably, kind of understandably, retaliates against Morgan. Like, the fact that they were kind of at each other's throats and had the complete opposite sentiments in that moment meant that they were never going to work together. So this case of Strand kicking Morgan in the walkers, Morgan getting the cards, and then managing to stop Teddy before he manages to shoot more than the 10 nukes that he did, was literally the best case scenario for that situation. And at the end of the episode, we are shown that there's a lot more walkers surrounding Strand's tower, so to speak. And the way that June says that they can't leave even if they wanted to really fucking confuses me. Because if it's impossible for them to leave, because obviously John Dory Sr. says that he doesn't want to stay in Strand's place because he doesn't trust him, he's on Morgan's side and everything. And June saying that they can't leave right now because he's obviously still not fully healthy. And she adds also that even if they wanted to, they can't leave because of all the walkers surrounding the place. But if there's that many walkers that they actually can't leave the community whenever they please, then how the fuck did Strand and his people leave to save June and John Dory Sr.? That's kind of the one thing that confused me about the end of the episode, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. Really, again, for me personally. So yeah, overall, this was pretty good. I enjoyed it. I am not a big fan of the hallucination part of the episode. I still would have rather not had it. But it was executed good enough for me, and it had good enough visuals, like interesting enough visuals, and the execution of the concept was interesting enough for me to overlook it. And yeah, it's my least favorite episode so far, but I mean, what can I do? Also, I forgot to mention another little detail about the soundtrack of this episode. Because as I mentioned earlier, this whole episode in general reminds me of Ghost Whispers. But the soundtrack in this episode, which in general so far the soundtrack in the episode has been pretty good. Like, nothing necessarily outstanding or particularly memorable. but it's been good. Like there hasn't been a moment where I have been taken out of it, you know. But in this episode, the soundtrack has these weird, ominous bells in the background, and I started to notice them in the beginning of the episode, but it wasn't until later on, once John Dory Sr. started to have some of these more ghost whisper like hallucinations, like especially the one where he's above ground that I mentioned earlier, where he sees those women with their mouths on, where it really implants itself into my memories, because it really fit with that situation. It made it feel really creepy, and those ominous bells are exactly the kind of thing you would hear in Ghost Whispers. I don't know if it's necessarily done it like that, because again, I haven't watched Ghost Whispers in probably close to a decade. But as I said, I will be reviewing it in the future. But it is something that I feel like that show would very much try to do like this. So in this episode, the soundtrack, because of that, was really fucking cool. Because usually with shows, I tend to notice mostly whenever they use good songs, which I don't think Fear has really done that. But in this case, I really enjoyed the more atmospheric and horror-like soundtrack. That was really fucking cool. I really like that. I enjoyed it. That's kind of where I'm gonna end that. And in terms of a rating, I'm gonna give this episode an 8.3 out of 10. Yes, I think it's a little worse compared to last episode, mainly because of the hallucination part of it, but I still think it was very entertaining. Like, the fact that I'm rating these episodes all 8 and above, I think it speaks for itself. Like, for me, anything that is 8 and above is really fucking good. But yeah, what did you guys think about this episode? Comment down below and let's have a discussion about it. As long as it's obviously fair and rational and you guys acknowledge both the positives and negatives just like I do. And maybe you guys can point out some negatives that I forgot. But yeah. Before we end this video though, I just want to give a huge shout out to my currently 2 patrons on Patreon, Omari Bridgman and Deadpool. Thank you guys for supporting me over there, it really means a lot to me. And now, before we end this video, I just want to talk about something to you guys very quickly, which some of you may or may have not noticed before or know about me, that being the fact that I am trans. And yes, this may come as shocking to some of you because I don't really flaunt it that much on my channel, or at least I feel like I don't. Outside of like my K-pop reactions, which is where I feel like the most comfortable being myself like this. And yeah, I am in fact trans. I'm not necessarily full-on male to female, but I heavily want to transition to being pretty female. I do consider myself more non-binary though, or maybe gender fluid would be the best descriptor as well, because I do have occasional moments where I feel fine being like just a normal guy, but most of the time, like right now, I do feel very dysphoric. And that's why I'm asking you guys for any help that you can give me, because my situation right now, I don't really see any way outside of you guys' help. Because, and this is gonna be kept short and concise, I live with my parents. They're never going to accept me as a trans person. They just never will. And as a matter of fact, back when I started the YouTube channel, I was actually kind of slightly starting my transition back then, with like starting to grow out my hair. I even got to DIY HRT, but because my parents started noticing certain things like my behavior had changed a lot and my clothes had changed a lot, I kind of had to stop doing that because they were constantly nagging me about cutting my hair and just started to kind of be threatening in a certain way and felt like they were ashamed of me and everything. And that just kind of stress just tired me out to the point where I just gave up. But as dysphoria goes, it just doesn't go away, you know. I still feel like this, and in fact it's somewhat been intensifying again recently, so I just wanted to share this with you guys. And again, I would really appreciate any amount of support you can give me in regards to this, because I just don't see any way out of this. Because even if I moved out of my parents' house and got myself a job and everything, that's just not gonna work for long-term planning, because once I transition, it's like I probably will not be able to get myself a job, because my country is very transphobic. Nobody gives a shit about LGBT people at all. So there's not even much I can do even in terms of transitioning here. So yeah, I don't know. I just would appreciate any amount of support you can give me, be it monetarily or in any way otherwise. And this is not about boosting my channel or anything, or guilt tripping you with my sob story. I just wanted to get this off my chest and make my subscribers aware of the situation that I am in, and that I would appreciate anything that you guys can help me out with. It would mean literally everything. Like, for example, a friend that I made after starting this YouTube channel, my good friend Yuri, has been helping me out a lot. And I genuinely might have not been here if it wasn't for him showing up and befriending me. So yeah, this just went a little bit longer than I intended, but I would just really appreciate anything you can support me with. That's kind of ultimately what I'm trying to say. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please leave a like, subscribe. Also, check out the description to my Twitter if you don't follow me over there, and to my Wattpad where I post my stories, because in addition to doing all these videos on my channel, I'm also a writer. And if you do enjoy my stories, or you simply enjoy my videos, you can head over to Patreon or to my Ko-fi account, where you can pledge your support and help get the channel going, help support me so I can keep writing the stories you enjoy. But if you don't want to do it, that's completely fine. You can still help me out in other ways, like liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and especially sharing this video with somebody who you think might enjoy it. And I think it's pretty much it for this video, so hopefully I'm gonna see you in the next one. Bye!